My beloved child. You think I made a mistake, don't you? I see the crack in your heart, where you once trusted me, but then life took a turn you couldn't explain. You had placed your hope in something, a dream, a person, a plan, and then everything collapsed. You bowed your head, too afraid to ask aloud, but your soul cried out, Lord, are you sure? Did you slip up in my life somehow? Today, I have not come to rebuke you for those questions. I've come to speak one truth to your heart, one that is firm, unshakable, and full of power. I do not make mistakes. Everything that has happened for a reason. My plan is not falling apart. It is being fulfilled in every detail, even through your tears. If you are in the wilderness, I am there. If you've just lost something important, I am holding what remains. If you don't yet understand why a door closed, stay with me, because in this video, I will open another door for you. A door into divine understanding, into rest within the palm of my hand, into trust when your eyes no longer see. Don't leave, because what you're about to hear won't just be words of comfort. It will be the key to help you understand why what looked like a mistake was actually the path I prepared to lead you into your destiny. My beloved child, today I see you. I see deep into your soul, into the place no one else can see. I know you're quietly trying to get back up after what you've called a failure. I know you once had simple dreams, a future you tried to build with sweat, with hope, with faith. But then, one day, something happened. Suddenly, senselessly, without explanation. The door you prayed would open suddenly closed. The person you trusted turned away. The path you thought was God's will suddenly became dark and unclear. And in that silence, in those nights when you turned your face into the pillow so no one could hear your cries, you whispered, Lord, did you make a mistake? Why did I do the right thing but get the wrong result? Why do I keep praying and still hear no answer? You didn't say it to anyone, but I heard. I felt every fractured heartbeat in your chest. And I want you to know this. I never make mistakes. Yes, my child. I, the one who created all things, the one who hung the stars in the sky without a single one out of place, how much more would I not be mistaken about the life I designed for you? You think I forgot you? No, my precious one. Every second you live, every step you take, I remember. You are my sheep. You are precious in my eyes, and I have never, ever taken back a single word I have spoken over your life. I know sometimes you look at your present and see nothing that resembles the promise you once received. Do you remember that day? When your heart burned with vision, with faith, with the clear sense that I was calling you to something higher? But then you stepped out, and instead of miracles, you found trials. Instead of being lifted up, you were pushed down. Instead of open doors, everything shut, and you began to doubt, not just my plan, but yourself. Did I hear wrong? Did I go the wrong way? But listen to me clearly, my beloved lamb. My plan is not canceled just because your circumstances changed. In fact, the very things you call wrong turns or failures are the exact pieces I am using to complete you. Do you know this? A painting, while it's still in progress, can look messy. An oil painting, when unfinished, looks like random smears of color with no meaning. But the artist knows exactly what they are painting. And I, the artist of your life, I know exactly who you are becoming with every stroke of my hand. Sometimes I use light, but there are also times I use darkness. Sometimes I take you to the mountaintop, but more often I lead you through the valley of the shadow of death, not to punish you, but to train you. What you call pain, I call shaping. What you think is falling behind, I call repositioning. Like an archer pulling the bowstring back hard, not to hold you down, but so the arrow will launch farther. I am pulling you back, not for something small, but for something great. I know this is hard to believe when you're in the middle of the storm, when the promise feels like it's faded and your prayers seem unanswered. But I want you to remember Joseph, that young man to whom I gave such grand dreams. I showed him visions of being lifted up, of ruling with purpose. And what happened first? He was betrayed by his brothers, chained, imprisoned, forgotten. For years, Joseph lived in circumstances that were the complete opposite of what I had promised. But even in those places, I was preparing him. I wasn't rushing to fulfill the promise, because first I was shaping his character. Joseph wasn't forgotten, he was hidden. And you, my precious one, you too are not overlooked. You are being hidden to be preserved. If you feel unseen, if no one recognizes your value, if every door seems closed, don't assume you're invisible to me. I'm hiding you to protect you. Because winter is not the time for fruit to ripen, but it is the time roots grow deep underground. I am deepening your roots, so when the season of elevation comes, the wind won't knock you down. You may have blamed me for the closed doors. But child, some doors closed not because I don't love you, but because I love you too much to let you walk into something you're not yet ready for. I may have stopped a relationship, a job, a plan, because if you had kept going, it would have taken you off course. You see the moment, but I see eternity. Remember David? Just a forgotten shepherd boy, not even mentioned when the prophet came to anoint a king. But he was the one I chose. Why? Because in solitude and silence, he learned to play the harp for me. He prayed with me. He killed lions and bears in secret, so one day he could kill Goliath in public. I was preparing him little by little, and I'm doing the same with you. So don't panic when things don't go your way. Because I don't move according to your preference, I move according to what's best. You may pray for ease, but I give you strength. You may ask for a shortcut, but I lead you through formation. Because what matters to me is not just the destination, but the person you become along the way. Don't fear your past. Don't fear your failures. Don't even fear the times you think you've made the wrong choices. Because when you give your life into my hands, I turn mistakes into lessons, tears into seeds, and your past into fertilizer for your future. Nothing is wasted in my hands. My precious lamb, if today you feel lost, I want you to know, I am close. Closer than you realize. I have never left you. And if you can't see me working, that may be the very moment I'm working the most. Not in the noise, but in the silence. Not in flashing miracles, but in the steady reshaping of your soul. Close your eyes for a moment, my child. Stop looking at the waves. Remember, on the boat, during the storm, I slept. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew the boat wouldn't sink as long as I was in it. And your life, your boat, is the same. The winds may be strong, but you will not sink. Because I am there. You may feel weak, but I am not. You may be uncertain, but my plan is unshakable. And one day, when you look back, you won't say, Lord, you forgot me. You'll say, through grateful tears, thank you for not letting go when I didn't understand. Thank you for holding on when I wanted to quit. So today, I only ask one thing from you. Don't leave me. Don't run from the process. Don't quit halfway through. I've begun a beautiful story in you, and I will not stop writing it. Let me continue. Even if the first pages are full of tears, the last will be full of glory. Even if this chapter is a valley, the next will be green pastures. Because I do not make mistakes, I am building. And you, my child, you are my masterpiece in progress, prepared to lead you into your destiny. My beloved child, if in the previous part you've come to realize that I've never made a mistake in your life, then today I want to speak to you about the very thing that has caused so many of the earth. My sheep to lose their way, grow weak, and silently fall. Silence. I know, silence is one of the hardest things for the human soul to endure. For you were created with a longing to hear, to know, to understand. And when I don't answer your prayers right away, when there are no signs, no miracles, no changes, your heart begins to fall into the scariest emptiness of all. Doubt. Lord, are you really listening to me? Where are you when I need you most? Or maybe, I'm no longer worthy of being heard by you. I know every question you've buried in your heart, the ones you've never dared to say aloud, for fear of seeming weak in faith, for fear of being misunderstood, judged. But I don't judge. I hear every word, even the ones you don't dare speak. And today, I want you to know this truth. Silence does not mean absence. Do you remember? Before I began my public ministry, I was in the wilderness, 40 days. No voice from heaven, no angels to comfort, only suffocating silence and the temptations of the enemy. And then, before I entered my suffering, I went into the Garden of Gethsemane, where I sweated drops like blood, where I pleaded with the Father to take the cup from me. But still, the heavens stayed silent. Do you see now? Even I, the Son of God, had long seasons where prayers were met with nothing but silence. But that silence was not rejection, it was preparation. Many times you've thought that when you don't hear from me, it means you've been abandoned. But the truth is, When you hear nothing, it might be because I'm teaching you to listen by faith, not just by ears. I don't stay silent to punish you. I stay silent to grow you. There are lessons that can only be learned in the dark. There are steps you'll never take if you always rely on feelings and signs. Oh, my sheep, remember this. Faith doesn't need to be reassured every day with a voice. True faith keeps walking, even when nothing is heard. That's when you close your eyes and still place your foot on the path I've laid, believing that my hand is still there, even when your eyes cannot see. When I'm silent, the enemy will try to take advantage. He will whisper, "See? He's forgotten you. Does he really love you? If he did, why won't he answer?" That's how he tempted Eve in Eden. He didn't shout, he asked a simple question, planted a tiny seed of doubt, but if left unchecked, that seed becomes a bitter root that ruins an entire harvest. Don't let him do that to you, my precious sheep. When I'm silent, it doesn't mean the enemy is right. He may sow doubts, but he never gets the final say. I am the one with all authority, and I am still working, quietly, precisely, deeply, like a gardener sowing seeds into the soil. No one sees the roots growing, but it's in that invisible place that life begins. Child, remember when you were small? When you first learned to walk, a loving father didn't hold your hand forever. At some point, he stepped back so you could walk on your own legs. Not because he abandoned you, but because he trusted that you were growing. In the same way, when I'm silent, it could be that I'm teaching you to trust what I've already taught you. You don't need a new sign every day to know I love you. You only need to remember the cross, the place where I hung for you, the place where, for 3 hours of darkness, no words were spoken, but it was the moment when my love was most clearly shown. Did you know? Some of the greatest loves don't need to be spoken aloud. Some of the most powerful presences are felt not by sound, but by simply being there. And I, the one who is always with you, am in that silence, not absent, but right beside you. Let me ask you this, child. You can trust me when everything is going well, but can you trust me even more when nothing is going right? You can praise me when you see miracles, but can you worship me when prayers remain unanswered? You can go to church when your heart is light, but are you willing to kneel when your heart is heavy? I don't ask these questions to judge you. I ask to awaken faith within you. Faith that isn't shaken by feelings, by circumstances, or by time. That is real faith, the kind that stands firm when storms rise, the kind that makes hell tremble and heaven smile. And you know what? The very moment you keep praying through my silence, that's the moment that confuses the enemy the most. Because he can't understand. Why do you still believe in a God who hasn't answered yet? But I understand. I see. And I treasure every second you stay faithful in the fog. There's a daughter of mine named Mai. She once wrote in her journal, "Lord, I can't hear you today, but I will still give you my morning time like usual, because faith isn't a feeling. Faith is a decision." And that simple faithfulness, no trumpets, no miracles, made me open doors she never expected, and she came to realize, miracles aren't always about changing circumstances. They're about transforming ourselves. My beloved child, I know your heart is waiting for a voice from heaven, a clear answer, a divine confirmation. But today, I want you to step into a new level. Not just living on my spoken words, but living on the promises I've already given. Open again to Romans 8 verse 28, the verse you once memorized. All things work together for good for those who love God. Not some things, not pleasant things, but all things, even silence. That verse is a promise. And when I haven't spoken anything new, stay faithful to what I've already said, because my words never expire. I know waiting wears you out. But remember, faith doesn't grow in easy times. It grows in drought, like the oak tree that grows slowly but firmly, like the eagle that waits for the strong wind to soar. You too are being prepared, not for something small, but for something far beyond what you can imagine. So do not let silence drown out my love. Don't let the absence of sound make you forget that I shed blood for you. If today you hear nothing from me, listen with your heart, and you will sense something far stronger than any voice, my presence. I am here, I've never left, and I have never changed. Right now, as you read these words, I am whispering to your soul, my child, I love you. Even when you don't see me, I see you. Even when you don't hear me, I am working. Even when you walk in darkness, I am the light ahead of you. Keep walking, keep trusting, for I, your God, have never made a mistake, and I have never abandoned you. My precious child, have you ever asked yourself, why is this happening when I've prayed, believed, and obeyed? Have you ever looked around and couldn't understand the reason for what's going on in your life? Have you ever felt like life is one big unanswered question? I see it all. I see you struggling with things beyond your understanding, things you didn't choose, didn't want, and never expected. But today, my child, I want to speak to you a truth that is both powerful and full of hope. I am using even what you don't understand to prepare you for what you never expected. Listen to me. You don't need to understand everything in order to walk in my plan. What you need is obedience, trust, and a willing heart. Because I, who sees from beginning to end, never do anything in your life by accident. You think those tears were wasted? You think those seasons of waiting were empty? You think those unexpected detours were failures? No, my child. In every one of those moments, I have been shaping you, refining you, preparing you, not for something small, but for a glorious purpose that is coming. Let me share with you a sacred secret. Every great miracle is born through a silent process. Before I multiplied the loaves, someone had to bring me 5 loaves and 2 fish, even though they seemed small, even though they didn't look like enough. Before I called Lazarus out of the tomb, everyone had to see that he was completely dead, buried for 4 days. And before I rose in glory, I myself was wounded, crucified, and buried. Oh, my little lamb, if you are in a dark season, if you are walking through a time where everything happening seems to contradict the promise you once received, then you are right in the middle of the shaping process I am using to prepare you for something greater. One day, when the light breaks through, you will look back and say, so that's why I had to endure all of that. Do you remember Joseph? A young man with a big dream who thought he'd be loved, supported, and lifted high, but instead he was betrayed by his brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and forgotten in prison. For years, everything in Joseph's life moved in the opposite direction of the promise. Can you imagine? If you were him, would you still hold on to your faith? But Joseph didn't give up. In the darkness, he remained faithful. In prison, he kept a pure heart. In injustice, he did not become bitter. Why? Because true faith doesn't need everything to go right to believe that God is doing what is right. And then, one day, after years of being forgotten, just in a moment, a call from the palace lifted Joseph from the dungeon to the throne. I used those years of pain to deepen his character and to make way for a greater plan, to save an entire nation. If I hadn't let him go through it, he could never have carried such a great responsibility. And you too, my precious one. I am preparing you to rescue someone, to influence someone, to shine light for someone through exactly what you are going through. Your pain today could be the key that opens the door of freedom for someone tomorrow. What you thought was the end might actually be the beginning of a testimony. You ask, but why didn't God make things easier? Because I love you too much to let you stay small. I don't just want you to survive, I want you to overcome. I don't just want you to be rescued, I want you to become the rescuer. That's why I am allowing things you don't understand to happen. Not to destroy you, but to shape you. Not to make you give up, but to raise you in glory. I am using what you didn't expect to give you what you never imagined. There was a daughter of mine named Mai-an. She dreamed of becoming a teacher and took the entrance exam 3 years in a row and failed every time. She fasted, prayed, wept, but the answer was still no. She blamed me. But then, during a season of rejection, she was asked to tutor a boy with autism in her neighborhood. Through that, she discovered a special passion for children with special needs. Today, she runs a center for children with developmental disabilities, where hundreds of little ones have found light and where parents have found hope. She looked back and said, if God hadn't closed that door, I would never have seen the bigger door he had prepared. Do you see now? Some failures are actually stepping stones. Some things that are taken away are really to make room for something better, deeper, more eternal. I'm preparing something great for you, not under the spotlight, but in the secret place where it's just you and me. The nights you cried in silence, the days you kept serving even when your heart felt empty. The times you forgave when no one even said sorry. None of it is meaningless. I am recording it all. I am using every second of it to lay the foundation for what you have not yet seen. Don't just look at the present, look with the eyes of faith. Like a builder, no one starts with the roof, they begin with the foundation, and the deeper the foundation, the higher the house. I'm laying the foundation for your life. That's why sometimes you don't see anything changing. But don't step back. You are being built, not forgotten. Oh, my child, keep walking. Don't ask why. Ask, Lord, what are you teaching me through this? Don't ask, when will I get out of this? Ask, who are you shaping me to become in this? Don't pray for ease, pray for endurance. Because I haven't called you to a life of comfort, but to a life of conquering, overcoming, shining. And that doesn't come from ease, it comes from maturity. It comes from seasons with no applause, no eyes watching, but I watch. My precious one, be at peace. If you are living according to my word, if you are remaining faithful even when you don't see a reward, if you are still praying even when heaven is silent, then you are on the right path. And one day, you will rise like Joseph, look back and say, you intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. Genesis 50. And I, your Lord, will smile and say, I told you, didn't I? I never make mistakes. I was just preparing you for what you never imagined. My precious child, now that you've heard the whole story, now that you understand nothing happens by accident, I want you to look up. Don't look back at the past as a string of failures. Look back at it as chapters I wrote with love to lead you to this very moment. This place where you don't have to understand everything, but you can still trust. Keep this truth close to your heart. I am never wrong, I am never late, and I will never abandon you. If you are still waiting, wait with hope. If you are still hurting, hurt in my hands. If you are still weary, pause and listen as I whisper into your soul. You are not lost, you are not forgotten, you are being prepared. I am still writing. And I will not stop until your life becomes a living testimony of my faithfulness. Now, if you truly believe that I am still at work, write this in the comments. Not just so others can see, but so your own soul can hear it. Lord, I believe you are never wrong. And if this message touched any part of your heart, share it with someone, because the truth about my love and my plan is never meant to be kept to yourself. My child, I love you, I see you, and I will complete the good work I began in you. In my name, the one who gave everything for you and who is never wrong. Amen.